My sister and I were reborn together. This time she gave me her gloomy and clingy wealthy husband. And married into the newly bankrupt Claudia's family. Sister, it's your turn to taste the life with the pervert this time. Later, the man kept rubbing against me in my arms. And muttered, wife, love me more. Well, he gives me 3 million yuan every month. So what if he's a bit clingy? What's wrong with him? As soon as I opened my eyes, I heard my sister Calypso arguing about marrying into the Claudius family. I knew she was also reborn. My parents' expressions changed. They had always favored my sister since childhood. I'm only 1 year older than Calypso, but I have to give in to her everywhere. The Claudius family has just gone bankrupt. You'll have a hard time there. Let your sister go. She's older and more sensible. When Calypso saw her parents' opposition, she immediately burst into tears. And threatened to go on a hunger strike. Calypso's parents finally couldn't bear it and had to agree. My mother turned her head to look at me. And said in a cold tone, you should thank your sister well in the future. I nodded silently. It was something she didn't want, but I still had to be grateful. When passing by me, Calypso whispered, sister, it's your turn to taste the life with the pervert this time. I replied with a smile. Did she really think that the days of the down and out Claudia family would be easy? No money is the beginning of all misfortunes. In the previous life, in the same choice, Calypso didn't hesitate to choose the Draco family. She fantasized about the happy life of a wealthy wife in the future. Sister, you can clean up the mess of the Claudius family. Who would have thought that Draco, the eldest son of the Draco family, was a gloomy and clingy person? He not only threatened her not to have any wrong ideas on the wedding day, and to be a good wife at home, but was also found self-harming in the study. After Calypso knew about it, she wanted to run away, but was caught by the bodyguards and imprisoned at home. She finally couldn't bear it and eloped with someone else. After Draco found her, the two divorced. And Calypso was disgraced ever since. However, with the support of my husband Claudius, I started from scratch. And became an excellent female entrepreneur. What Claudius often said was, contemporary women should create their own value. And should not rely on men to live. As long as Serafina is willing, I will always support her silently behind her back. Because of these words, Claudius was rated as an excellent good husband in the new era by the people in the circle. I became the envy of many wealthy wives. But such days didn't last long. At a family banquet, Calypso invited me to her room. And set a fire, dying with me. At the last moment of life, Calypso grabbed my leg tightly with a ferocious face. Having failed by Abu's Serafina, she said, I've always been better than you since childhood. Why are you living better than me now? Even if I die, I'll take you with me. The burning pain of the fire still makes me shudder when I think about it now. In this life, looking at Calypso's confident look, I shook my head helplessly. If it weren't for me, how could the Claudius family make a comeback? My wedding date was 1 day earlier than Calypso's. These days, Calypso has been showing off in front of me how good Claudius is to her. He cares and accompanies her meticulously every day. In contrast, Draco hasn't come to see me once. Every time I hear this, I can't help but smile. The Claudius family has gone bankrupt. Besides being good to you, what else can he do? When a man is good to you, you are the moon in the sky. When he doesn't want to be good to you anymore, you are the dirt that can be trampled on at will. The Draco family is more practical. Just in these few days, they have brought countless betrothal gifts. Under my strong request, my parents reluctantly put some of the betrothal gifts in my dowry. The marriage alliance with the Draco family was arranged by our family, in order to make the business of the Calypso family reach a higher level. As for the Claudius family, it's because our two families had an engagement since childhood. Before the Claudius family went bankrupt, we were also well matched. Now that the Claudius family has gone bankrupt, Calypso's father doesn't want to be said to be snobbish. So he can only bite the bullet and continue this engagement. On the wedding day, head held high, I finally saw Draco. He had a high and straight nose with gold-rimmed glasses on it. And his whole body exuded a cold and solemn air. There was no sign at all that he was a person who would self-harm. When the MC announced that the groom could kiss the bride, I didn't react. And subconsciously stepped back. Draco tightened his hand around my waist. And forced me to get close to his chest. And his cool lips kissed me. At night, he sat on the sofa with his tie loosely hanging around his neck. And his shirt half open, revealing his muscular chest. At this time, I saw a trace of clinginess on him. Suddenly, he reached out and held my chin. Bent down and looked directly into my eyes. His eyes slightly darkened. This marriage was begged by your Calypso family. Now that you're married, put away those thoughts you shouldn't have. I'll give you 3 million yuan every month. You just need to play the role of Mrs. Draco well in front of others. And don't need to do anything else. I don't like others coveting my things. If you don't listen to me, I can't guarantee what I will do. Before Draco finished speaking, I directly pulled down his tie. And kissed his lips. Since just now, my eyes have been wandering inside his shirt. Because of the bending action, Draco's beautiful muscle lines and blocky abdominal muscles were all in sight. Who wouldn't be fascinated by this? After a while, I let go of him. And saw Draco's red ears. My hand involuntarily touched his abdominal muscles. I put my lips close to his ear and exhaled hot air. Husband, you have a great body. Now that you finished speaking, should we move on to the next step? Draco's body trembled. And his voice was hoarse. What are you doing? I raised my eyebrows. I'm exercising my rights as a wife, can't I? Feeling my provocation, Draco laughed lowly. The next second, the man took off his gold-rimmed glasses. And kissed me crazily with an overbearing and scorching heat that couldn't be refused. I felt like I was going to melt. When I was drowsy, I had to admit the gap in strength between men and women. I was already exhausted, but he was still tireless. The next day when I woke up, it was already afternoon. And there was ointment by the bed. It should have been prepared by Draco. He was kind of conscious. I took a bath and prepared to go downstairs for dinner. The butler gave me a secondary card of Draco. The young master said you can buy whatever you want. I took it happily. It feels really good to get money without having to work hard day and night. And without having to look at the faces of investors. In the previous life, after I married Claudius, I moved to a shabby rental house. They told me to be thrifty and manage the household. But they themselves spent money lavishly. Before long, they squandered all the dowry I brought. Looking at the time, Calypso should have already married into the Claudius family by now. My parents said before that I didn't need to attend the wedding. I don't know what kind of mood she would have when facing the wolves and tigers in this family. Thinking a bit, I felt that I should please Draco the Gold Master even more. In the following days, when Draco ate, I served him food. When Draco was tired, I massaged him. When Draco wanted to take a bath, I immediately went to run the hot water nimbly. At first, Draco was a bit uncomfortable. I can do these things myself. How can this be? Didn't you ask me to be a good wife? Husband works so hard, of course wife should take good care of you. Actually, it's because I took so much money. And I would really feel guilty if I didn't do something. Draco didn't respond and had a cold expression on his face. But I saw the corners of his mouth secretly raised behind my back. I would also go to his company to deliver lunch to him when I had nothing to do. After becoming a female entrepreneur in the previous life, I realized why 9 out of 10 presidents have stomach problems. Because they really don't have time to eat when they are busy. In Draco's office, having fulfilled my duties, I saw a female secretary wearing a deep V-shirt. Her eyes staring at Draco were almost dripping water. When eating, I pretended to say casually, "Your secretary is quite beautiful and has a good figure." Draco immediately understood what I meant. And didn't even look at me, just said, "Don't be unreasonable." I secretly glared at him. But when I went there later, I found that Draco had changed to a male secretary. I heard that the female secretary was transferred to be the secretary of other senior executives. Well, so he's still an awkward and proud man. Originally heading for failure in this life, I thought that the relationship between me and Draco would get better and better. But one day he suddenly began to avoid me. He slept in the study every night under the pretext of work. We used to be able to have breakfast together. But now I can hardly see him. Even if I'm stupid, I know he's avoiding me. I originally planned to wait for him at home today. And asked him clearly. But I received a text message from a friend inviting me to afternoon tea. When I went there, I found Calypso was also there. The dazzling jewelry on her body was gone. And the bag she carried was last year's style. It seems that she has lost a lot in the Claudius family. But she still had a smiling face on the surface. Only when she saw my whole body in limited edition, there was a strange look in her eyes. And she immediately returned to normal. When others asked her when she would have a baby, Calypso's smile froze. My husband said, "Don't worry. He can't bear to see me become a mother at such a young age. So we won't consider it in these few years." Everyone immediately praised Claudius as a rare good husband. Looking at Calypso's performance, she should have noticed. Of course Claudius is not in a hurry. I'm afraid it's her who will be in a hurry later. Seeing my uncontrollable smile, Calypso glared at me fiercely. When her eyes fell on the red marks on my hands, she showed a proud smile again. Sister, what's wrong with your hands? I heard that Draco has a bad temper. Could it be that he hit you? I looked at the red marks on my hands. It was indeed made by Draco, but not by hitting. It was tied by his tie. Draco is really a beast. Now when I think of the scene at that time, I still can't help blushing. And in the eyes of others, they all thought I was guilty. Calypso was in an even better mood. Sister, a marriage without love is really pitiful. After the party, Claudius took a taxi to pick up Calypso. The people around were envious again. I had already called the driver at home to pick me up. But unexpectedly, it was Draco who came. Before I even left the store, I saw him sitting in the car waiting for me. Our eyes met, and I couldn't help but quicken my pace. Calypso suddenly stretched out her foot and tripped me. I almost fell, and the waiter next to me helped me up. Thank you, I thanked the other person. Looking up, I saw Draco had already got out of the car. His eyes were cold, and he stared at the waiter's hand touching my shoulder. Draco quickly walked over, looked me up and down to make sure I wasn't injured. And then dragged me away without saying a word. Perhaps Draco's aura was too powerful. That no one around dared to speak. And all showed sympathetic eyes to me. Calypso slowly opened her mouth. And I knew from the shape of her mouth that she was saying, Sister, good luck to you. In the car, Draco didn't do anything to me. And just drove silently without saying a word. His face slowly softened. And the air pressure around him wasn't so strong. This guy actually coaxed himself well. As soon as we got home, Draco was about to enter the study. I couldn't help but say, Tonight won't you stay in the master bedroom? Draco turned his head. The hint of an adult was obvious enough. And we both understood each other without saying a word. Draco walked up to me. Suddenly grabbed my waist. And hugged me into his arms. With a sick and charming smile on his lips, Aren't you afraid of me? I raised my eyebrows and kissed the man's Adam's apple. Afraid of you what? Let me try something else this time. Draco's breath hitched. And the forbearance in his eyes disappeared. Serafina, don't you dare to ask me to stop later. He said, then his hand slowly stroked my shoulder. His voice cold as ice. Where did he touch you just now? Here or here? Oh no, he was going to settle scores after the event. Before I could react, Draco bit my shoulder hard. I couldn't help but let out a soft moan. Draco lowered his head and kissed me, blocking my voice. That kiss seemed to be enchanted, making me completely immersed in it. In the end, I could only instinctively hold him tightly. In the middle of the night, I felt someone gently stroking my cheek. Serafina, you were the one who provoked me first. I won't hold back anymore. And don't you ever think of running away from me in the future. In the days that followed, Draco spent more and more time at home. He didn't go to the study at night anymore. And insisted on holding me in his arms to sleep every night. In my previous life, from Calypso's words, I knew that there were many self-harm tools in Draco's study. Naturally, I hoped that he could stay away from that study. Sometimes when he was sound asleep, Draco's head would unconsciously bury in my arms. And rub against me, murmuring, Honey, love me more. It was completely contrary to his cold and self-restrained appearance during the day. According to Butler Chan, Draco used to have to take a lot of sleeping pills every time before he could fall asleep. However, since he had been with me, he hadn't taken any. I was glad that I could help him. When Draco went to work, I wasn't idle at home either. Relying on the memories of my previous life, I took the money Draco gave me. And the dowry I brought from the Calypso family to invest in several promising funds and stocks. And made a lot of money in a short time. Now I've also become a considerable little rich woman. To hell with being a strong woman. I just want to be a rich woman. In this life, there are too many definitions and requirements for women in this world. Whether it's a career elite or a housewife, women shouldn't be defined by any ideas. As long as I'm willing, I can be any role. Later, when I went back to the Calypso family to get my old things, I happened to overhear my mother talking on the phone with Calypso. From their conversation, I learned that Calypso had come to borrow money. The amount was quite large. Because my mother simply couldn't afford to lend her that much money. Calypso asked her to borrow it, saying that she planned to do business and needed startup funds. If even my mother didn't help her, she might as well die. My mother finally agreed. Hearing this, I lost interest and turned around to leave. In my previous life, Claudius also asked me to go home to borrow money to do business. But I didn't agree. A short-term handout couldn't bring long-term stability. If you want to live a good life, the most important thing is to be able to stand on your own feet. So I started from a small store. Since I couldn't afford to hire people, I did everything by myself. Every investment was obtained by me drinking and putting on a smiling face. And what was Claudius doing at that time? He would just put on airs at home, be lazy, and was addicted to smoking, drinking, and gambling. Calypso thought that with enough funds, she could gain freedom and become a strong woman that everyone envied. Little did she know that there was never real freedom in this world. If you want to break free from the cage, you can only rely on your own real skills. I just didn't expect that even though Calypso was in trouble both internally and externally, she still had the time to make trouble for me. I don't know when it started, but people around began to spread the rumor that Draco was a pervert, and that I had been constantly abused by Draco at home. The marks on my body were said to be beaten by him. After sending someone to investigate, it turned out that it was spread by my dear sister. But the marks on my body really weren't from being beaten. However, I couldn't explain to everyone one by one how the marks on my body came about. At night, I bit Draco's shoulder hard in anger. Could you be a bit gentler in the future? You don't even know what rumors are going around outside now. Draco stopped his movements and smiled self-deprecatingly. Maybe I'm really a pervert. Then he held me tightly in his arms. If I'm a pervert, will you abandon me? There was an imperceptible fear in Draco's tone. I raised my head and kissed him. Now who doesn't have some psychological problems these days? I have them too, so neither of us should despise the other. During these days, I could feel Draco's kindness to me. He almost granted every request of mine. For the first time, I, who had never felt loved, experienced what it was like to be cared about by someone. I admit that I was also moved. Hearing my words, Draco smiled as if relieved. It seemed that the thing he had been worried and afraid of was just a common little problem that everyone had. In my words, because I cared about him, I wanted to know more about Draco. There were many scars on Draco's body. And there were also scars left by cutting his wrists on his wrists. I once tentatively asked him where these wounds came from. Draco didn't want to answer. If I pressed him further, he would kiss me hard. Later, I still learned some things from Butlerchin. Butlerchin was an old servant of the Draco family. He knew many unknown things about the Draco family. He told me that Draco was abducted by human traffickers when he was 10 years old. At that time, Draco's father and mother also searched desperately for him. But they couldn't find him no matter what. Finally, having to feel they had to give up, they adopted another little boy in the orphanage, naming him Cain. However, nobody expected that 3 years later, Draco actually came back by himself. At that time, he was covered in blood and mud. His eyes were hollow, and his hair was disheveled. The servants thought he was a beggar and even hit him a few times with a broom. Finally, having to flee, but Lone recognized Draco and carried him to the hospital. At that time, Draco's father and mother were happily attending Cain's parents' meeting. After learning that Draco had come back, they didn't immediately care about their son, but ran to comfort Cain instead. They told him that even if his brother came back, it wouldn't affect his position in their hearts. In their hearts, Cain was still the most outstanding son. These words were clearly heard by Draco in the ward. After Draco came back, he was no longer as sunny and cheerful as before. Instead, he became withdrawn and autistic. Nobody knew how he had spent these 3 years. When Draco's father and mother noticed this, instead of giving their son psychological counseling immediately, they accused him of changing, of not being close to them anymore, and of not being as good at pleasing people as Cain. Finally, having to feel my pain, they devoted all their attention to Cain. At school, Cain led other classmates in the class to laugh at Draco. They bullied him when he didn't speak. They made others mistakenly think that Draco was the adopted son, while he was the real young master of the Draco family. Finally, having to flee, Draco couldn't bear it anymore, and beat up all those who bullied him. He even directly broke Cain's head. Draco's mother slapped Draco in public without distinguishing right from wrong. Since then, everyone thought it was Draco's fault, and no one in the school dared to be friends with him anymore. Of course, no one dared to bully him either. Speaking of this, Butlerchan couldn't help but have his eyes turn red. I watched the young master grow up. Nobody knows the pain in his heart. And he decided to lead the Draco family. I also followed him without hesitation. I just didn't want him to have no one around who truly cared about him. I patted Butlerchan on the back to comfort him, and said that I would definitely take good care of Draco in the future. As for parents like that, there was nothing to be nostalgic about. It would be fine if we never had anything to do with each other in the future. However, I didn't expect that a few days later, Draco's mother called. Draco and I were having dinner when he received a call from his mother, asking us to go home for dinner tomorrow night. Draco didn't want to go at first, but they said there was something very important to talk about. Finally, having to feel we had to, we decided to go. As soon as we entered the door, we saw 3 people sitting on the sofa chatting and laughing. The moment they saw us, the smiles on Draco's father's and mother's faces faded a little. Kane, however, didn't change much. Instead, he greeted me enthusiastically, complimenting that I was even more beautiful than when I got married. I smiled faintly and nodded. After a few rounds of conversation, I had a taste of Kane's skills. His words were all flattering, but his eyes were full of calculation and hypocrisy. It could be seen that he wanted to win me over and make me stand on the opposite side of Draco. From time to time, he would also show the scar on his forehead. His words all implied that Draco was a violent maniac and might beat me up at any time. It turned out that when a boy played the green tea game, girls couldn't compete with him at all. I smiled and fought back. How could that be? My husband only beats bad guys. Hearing this, the whole place fell silent. The smile on Kane's face couldn't be held anymore, and he walked away awkwardly. He didn't talk to me again later. Draco's father was talking to Draco about the company's affairs, when suddenly he changed the topic. Your younger brother has graduated from university this year. Get ready to make a handover and give up your position to your younger brother. You can just assist him well in the future. The Draco family's group was actually just an ordinary enterprise a few years ago. It was Draco's efforts over the years that had developed the company to its current position. Hearing this, Draco sneered coldly. Why should I? Draco's father slapped the table hard. Just because you're my son and this company was founded by me, I can give it to whoever I want. Then you can try and see whether the current board of directors will listen to you or to me. Draco's mother was so angry that she walked straight over and slapped Draco. How could I have raised such a son? Talking to your parents like this. I wish you had been killed by the human traffickers back then and never come back. Draco turned his head to one side, didn't say a word, and clenched his fists. Finally, having to feel the pain, we didn't even have dinner, and he dragged me away. In the car, Draco didn't say a word. I was thinking about how to comfort him, when he suddenly slammed on the brakes and parked the car by the roadside. I'm going to buy something. Wait for me in the car, he said. After that, without waiting for my reply, Draco got out of the car and walked away. After a long time, Draco still hadn't come back. I was worried that something had happened to him, so I decided to get out of the car to look for him. I walked for a long time but couldn't find Draco. I was a bit scared and thought about going back the way I came. However, I was blocked by a group of hooligans. Where did this chick come from? Why don't you go home so late? Come and play with us, brother. I pretended to be calm and said coldly, it's none of your business. The leader sneered and reached out to put his arm around my shoulder. Stop pretending. Don't worry, brothers will surely love you. I dodged sideways and took a few steps back, threatening, if you don't leave immediately, I'll call the police. The several people weren't afraid. I kept backing away while they kept approaching, until my back was against the wall and there was nowhere to retreat. The several people were still approaching. I grasped the anti-wolf device in my bag tightly, ready to take action when they got a little closer. Unexpectedly, before the several people could get close to me, the man in the lead was grabbed by the hair from behind by a big hand, and was slammed hard against the wall with a bang. The man's head was immediately bleeding, and he covered his head and screamed in pain. I took a closer look, and it was indeed Draco. His eyes were red as if he was extremely angry. Before the others could react, he pushed them all to the ground and beat them up. His fists were stained red with blood. Finally, having to feel my pain, the several people fled in a panic. Draco looked at me as I stood there in a daze, and sneered, then he pulled me into his arms, and said, even if you're scared, I won't let you leave. In this life, you can only be mine. I collected myself a little, and reached out to hug him back. I'm not scared. But if you beat them up, you can't lay a finger on me. Draco paused for a moment, buried his head in my neck, and suddenly let out a low laugh. Silly girl. My stomach growled inappropriately. There was nothing I could do. I hadn't had dinner yet. Draco was in a much better state than before. He took my hand and led me to have something delicious. Later, I saw new scars on Draco's hands, and realized that he had left to self-harm while avoiding me. Draco didn't want me to see his wretched appearance. He didn't want to die now. But he still couldn't help wanting to hurt himself. He couldn't control it. And could only hide a small knife on his body. Draco's psychiatrist told him that it was a kind of extreme self-loathing in his heart. I took his knife away. And told him that he couldn't avoid me when he had an episode in the future. We would face it together. Draco agreed. After that, Draco's parents called several times asking us to go over. But we refused all of them. However, a few days later, my parents showed up uninvited. And they brought Calypso with them. They claimed that they had heard I was being domestically abused. And wanted to come to care about me. I sneered in my heart. If they really cared, shouldn't they have come over as soon as they heard about it? Sure enough, after just a few words, they revealed their real purpose for coming to see me. It was Calypso who wanted to borrow money from me. Calculating the time, by now the money on Calypso had basically been squandered by the people of the Claudius family. The whole family was waiting to suck her blood. That she came to me showed that Calypso was really desperate. But of course, she wouldn't tell me these things. She just said that her business was getting bigger. And she needed funds. So she came to borrow money from me. Naturally, I refused. Calypso's expression changed. You have so much money anyway. Hunting so sway, you can't spend it all. Your husband won't let you go out either. You might as well give it to me. I'm going to be a strong woman in the future. Don't blame me for not warning you. If your husband goes crazy in the future, you'll only have your parents' family to rely on. Are you sure you want to fall out with me now? I smiled faintly. Fall out? Do you still have any shame? I thought you had lost it long ago. Calypso angrily pointed at me. And couldn't say a word for a long time. Dad's face darkened. Serafina, don't you even listen to your parents' words anymore? Sorry, I haven't wanted to listen for a long time. Dad reached out to hit me. But was stopped by the bodyguard. I directly asked the bodyguard to drive the three of them out. Calypso still wanted to curse me at the door. But Dad and Mom thought it was embarrassing. And dragged her back. This was the first time since I was born that I had gone against my parents' wishes. Because I understood that always swallowing insults wouldn't turn respect. But would only make things worse. Draco hugged me from behind. He had been upstairs just now. And had heard every word clearly. They made you angry. Let me help you get rid of them. I shook my head. Evil will always be punished in the end. Later, Mom called me again. And scolded me harshly. She said that if I didn't help Calypso, she would cut off the mother-daughter relationship with me. That's exactly what I want. I hung up the phone and blocked her number directly. Later, at a dinner party, I saw Calypso again. She looked flushed. And when she saw me, her smile grew deeper. Sister, do you think I won't succeed just because you don't help me this time? My husband helped me get Mr. X's investment. The Claudius family will soon make a comeback. I didn't respond. I just turned to look at Claudius. You got Mr. X? There was an uncontrollable smug look on Claudius's face. But he still tried hard to put on a humble and polite appearance. I'm willing to do anything to help Calypso. I sneered. Sometimes people pretend for so long that they even think it's true. Claudius took Calypso's hand and left. Mr. Xia is over there. Let's go and thank him. Before leaving, Calypso gave me a provocative glance. And whispered, what you can do, I can do too. In my previous life, I also got Mr. Zhao's investment. But at that time, I already knew what kind of person Claudius was. He couldn't possibly have the ability to get such a big investment. So I was on my guard. Sure enough, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Sometimes the price is even something we can't afford. Draco walked over and held my hand. Looking a bit worried. What's wrong? I smiled and shook my head. Nothing. These were all Calypso's own choices. Now I just needed to walk my own path well. The dinner party lasted until very late. Almost all the guests would choose to stay in the hotel for one night before leaving. Draco and I were no exception. In the morning, I got up and was about to go downstairs for breakfast. When I heard Calypso's voice outside another room. Claudius, you bastard. You set me up and made me a company. Mr. X just to get the investment. You're useless yourself. And you even gave your wife away. You're hardly human. After saying that, Calypso slapped Claudius hard. Claudius didn't show any mercy. And slapped her back. Pushing Calypso to the ground. Otherwise, why do you think he would invest? It's not like you could borrow money otherwise. Would I have done this? I advise you not to make a fuss. He has a lot of your photos now. If they are exposed, I won't be able to help you." After saying that, Claudius left the room, leaving Calypso sitting on the ground in despair. When she looked up and saw me, Calypso rushed over viciously, trying to grab me. "Why, you clearly knew. Why didn't you tell me in advance?" I dodged her attack and said in a calm tone, "It was your own choice, wasn't it?" Calypso fell to the ground again and suddenly laughed. "So in the previous life, you also went to the same thing as I did. You're also a dirty one. We're both dirty. Who's nobler than who? We're both dirty." Calypso kept repeating it, as if doing so could pull me down to the same level as her and make her feel better. But the next second, my answer completely broke her down. "I didn't." Calypso opened her eyes wide. "Impossible. In a situation like yesterday's, how could a woman like you escape?" "Because I'm tougher than them." Calypso laughed unbelievingly. "How is that possible? How can a woman be tougher than a man?" I didn't answer, and walked past Calypso and left. In my previous life, Claudius got me drunk and took me to Su Qing's room. But they didn't know that I had built up my tolerance to alcohol in one business dinner after another, and wasn't that easy to get drunk. And I had been on guard against them from the start. As soon as I entered the room, I turned on the voice recorder on my phone. When Su Qing tried to force himself on me, I struggled desperately. Claudius was just standing at the door of the room, but still stood by and did nothing. Su Qing thought I was already trapped, and didn't hold back anymore, spouting all kinds of filthy words. Finally, having to feel my pain, I directly picked up the wine bottle on the table and smashed it on his head. I held the broken edge against his neck. "If you dare to come forward, you will surely die." Su Qing threatened, "If you dare to kill me, your life will be ruined too. Then we'll die together." Perhaps I was too terrifying at that time. In the end, Su Qing didn't have the courage to die with me, and had to let me go. As for why I let Claudius take me into a trap when I was suspicious, it was because I needed this investment. So I had to find something on Su Qing. I was desperate at that time. It was my last resort to turn a desperate situation into a chance for survival. Fortunately, having fulfilled me, I won the bet. Because of the recording, Su Qing finally invested in our company. In the end, the company also gradually got on the right track. But Calypso wasn't brave enough. She didn't even have the courage to leave, because she couldn't bear to give up the investment that she had sacrificed so much for. So she could only be threatened and controlled again and again. And there are no secrets that can be kept forever. Calypso's reputation soon stank. Everyone was secretly talking about her and Su Qing's affairs behind her back. Mom and Dad were completely disappointed in Calypso, and thought that her behavior had made them lose face in front of their friends. People are all after profit. They gradually distanced themselves from Calypso, and instead came to please me. My relationship with Draco became more and more stable. He even publicly decided to give me half of all his company shares. As soon as he finished work, he would go home immediately. He turned down all business dinners and social engagements. There wasn't a single person of the opposite sex around him. He was cold to everyone, and only when he saw me would there be tenderness in his eyes. I became the envy of everyone again. Everyone came to ask me for advice on how to manage my husband, asking me what tricks I used to make my husband be so devoted to me. A month later, Draco and I attended the summit forum in the industry together, and met Calypso and Claudius, who were also attending. Calypso no longer had her former arrogance. She looked haggard, and the bruises on her face couldn't be covered by foundation. People around were secretly laughing at her, but she was still calm and chatted with others as if nothing had happened. She just looked at me as if I were a stranger, and walked straight past me. Naturally, I wouldn't take the initiative to greet her either. However, I didn't expect that she had put a drug in the water that the waiter brought for me, and also had someone send Draco away. When I was in a daze, she took me to a room on the second floor. "Serafina, don't blame me. Why should you get all the benefits in these two lives, while I bear all the hardships?" Su Qing said that as long as I help him get you, he'll let me go. Be good and don't resist. Just sleep with him and it'll be okay. Calypso put me on the bed and left in a panic. I forced myself to open my eyes, and saw a fat, big-bellied figure by the bed. Su Qing was approaching me step by step. I groped hard in my bag for the short knife that Draco had used to self-harm before. Just as Su Qing was about to touch me, I forced myself to stay conscious. and stabbed the knife through his palm. Su Qing held his arm and screamed, "How could you have a knife, woman?" I collapsed on the ground and cut a gash on my own arm with the knife. The pain made me a bit more sober. I stumbled out of the room. I was hugged by someone, and I wanted to struggle. The person said, "Serafina, it's me." I looked up and saw Draco's anxious expression, and then I fainted with peace of mind. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital. Draco was sleeping beside the bed, holding my hand tightly. As soon as I moved, he woke up and quickly went to call the nurse. He fed me medicine according to the nurse's instructions, and then held me in his arms, reluctant to let go for a long time. I stroked his head to comfort him. "Don't worry, I'm okay now, aren't I?" Draco's tone became gloomy. "Just thinking about that man wanting to touch you makes me want to chop off his hands." "Then according to what you said, no man can touch me in the future." "Of course not. So Serafina belongs to me alone." After saying that, Draco held me even tighter. "However, you also touched other girls' hands at the summit before. Should I be angry about that too?" "It was just a joke." But to my surprise, Draco nodded. "That makes sense. Then Serafina can chop off my hand as punishment." After saying that, he actually handed the knife to me. Seeing that I didn't make a move, Draco actually looked a bit aggrieved. "Serafina doesn't chop it off. Is it because you don't like me so you're not even angry that I touched other girls?" I helplessly said, "You're crazy." The next day, I learned from the bodyguard that after Draco found that I was missing, he went crazy looking for me, and almost made the whole summit unable to continue. Later, after finding me in a room on the second floor, Calypso tried to step forward to stop him, but Draco kicked her down. Draco sent me to the hospital and asked the bodyguards to beat the 3 people up severely. If the organizer of the summit hadn't stepped in to stop it, I'm afraid things would have gotten out of hand. Calypso was in the same hospital as me. After I recovered, I went to see her once. Calypso couldn't get up from the bed. "Are you very proud now that you see me like this?" I sat on the sofa opposite her. "All of this is the result of your own actions." Calypso laughed, and the laughter gradually became shrill. "I just don't understand. We have the same background and the same parents. Why is it that whatever you choose, you succeed well? Whatever I choose, I fail. I'm not reconciled. Why does God always favor you? God didn't favor me. You were wrong from the very beginning. What's important has never been the choice itself, but the person who makes the choice." Calypso sneered. "Don't you just want to say that I'm not as brave as you?" I gently shook my hand. "No. Your biggest mistake is that you always hope to get what you want through others, and never think about achieving it through your own efforts. However, every gift given by God has already been marked with a price. People can't have everything they want. If you're too greedy, you'll surely suffer the consequences. The person who brought you to this state has never been me." Calypso stared at me with wide eyes. I got up and left without looking back. Behind me was Calypso's almost crazy voice. "You're lying. I didn't lose. You're lying." After I was discharged from the hospital, Draco clung to me even more tightly. He blamed himself for what had happened to me, and wanted to take me with him everywhere at any time. I heard from my father that after Calypso was discharged from the hospital, Claudius divorced her. Recently, having fulfilled my insertion, he seemed to be pursuing the daughter of a newly rich family. Calypso kept babbling every day that she was not wrong, and that she hadn't lost. My parents had no choice but to send her to a mental hospital. Of course, Draco wouldn't let Su Qing off so easily either. In less than a month, he drove Su Qing's company into bankruptcy. Su Qing also took on a huge debt, and had to live the life of hiding here and there every day. Finally, having to feel my pain, he was taken away by the police because of robbery and involuntary manslaughter. Later, I saw Calypso on the news. Somehow, she escaped from the mental hospital and stabbed Claudius with a knife at his wedding ceremony. Claudius died on the spot. When Calypso was caught, she was still muttering, "It's all your fault." Because of her mental problems, Calypso wasn't sentenced, but she would probably have to spend the rest of her life in a mental hospital. After my mother learned about it, she called me on a new mobile phone, crying and saying that she could only rely on me for the rest of her life. I gave a perfunctory reply, and then hung up. Since they raised me, I will naturally repay them. But if they expect my care and love, I'm afraid they will be disappointed. Because I never got these things when I was a child either. In this winter, I became pregnant. When Draco learned about it, he was so happy that he danced with joy. He didn't know if he could touch me. In the end, it was I who hugged him first. Then Draco happily picked me up and spun me around. After 10 months of pregnancy, we gave birth to a lovely daughter. Draco's father and mother wanted to see the child, but we refused them. Draco looked at the child, his eyes full of tenderness. "Serafina, I will definitely try my best to be a good father." I smiled and said, "We both will. Even though neither of us received our parents' love, our child will surely be the happiest child."